Do you ever feel like you don't have enough influence on others? Or like it's a real struggle to get people to say yes to what seem like really reasonable requests? Whether you're trying to convince your boss to give you a raise, get your kids to clean their room, or just win the debate on where to go for dinner that evening, working on your persuasion skills can pay off in countless ways. But how do you go about learning how to be more persuasive? Well, the good news is that decades of psychological research have revealed the things that make it more likely that people will say yes. And researchers such as Robert Cialdini have boiled these things down into 7 principles that you can use in everyday life to make it more likely that you'll get what you want. Have you ever accepted a small treat from a salesperson, such as a cup of coffee or a sweet, and then suddenly felt obligated to buy something from them, even if that wasn't your original intention? It just feels like, well, you've taken something, so now you have to give something back. This is an example of the principle of reciprocity, which is a key persuasion tactic which exploits our tendency to want to return favours. If someone does something nice for us, we feel inclined to do something nice for them in return. You can use this principle to become more persuasive by remembering to give someone something before you make a request of them. The thing that you give could be as simple as a compliment for a loved one, or a cup of coffee for someone you work with. The fact that you've given them something before making a request of them will make them much more well disposed towards your request. Have you ever been shopping online and found a product that you liked featuring a sales sticker that said something like, "Only one left at this price," which made you feel compelled to buy it then and there? This is an example of the principle of persuasion known as scarcity in action, which relates to our tendency to see things that are limited in availability as being inherently more valuable. You can take advantage of the principle of scarcity by highlighting when something is rare or only available for a limited period of time. So for example, if you needed a decision quickly, you could say something like, "This opportunity won't be around for long, so now is the time to act." If you wanted the edge in a negotiation, you could say something like, "I've had other offers, but I want to check with you first." Generally speaking, people are averse to the idea of missing out on something, so highlighting the scarcity of your proposition is a good way of increasing its perceived value. Imagine you're watching 2 adverts for something like kitchen utensils. One of the adverts is presented by a regular person off the street. The second advert is presented by a top chef. Which of these 2 adverts do you think you'll find more persuasive? If you think you'd find the advert from the chef more persuasive, then you're demonstrating the authority principle of persuasion. This relates to our understandable tendency to trust advice from people we perceive as being legitimate authority on a particular subject. You can boost your persuasiveness by establishing relevant authority. So for example, outline your experience before offering advice. If you're making an argument, present some compelling evidence to support your argument. People are more likely to come around to your way of thinking if they perceive you as having relevant expertise. Have you ever been approached in the street by a charity worker who maybe asked you to sign a petition, which perhaps you were happy to do, only then to ask you to make a donation, which you weren't planning on doing but now perhaps feel compelled to? This is an example of the principle of consistency in action, which means that once we've made a decision to do something, we feel compelled to make our subsequent behaviour consistent with that decision. You can take advantage of the principle of consistency by, for example, asking for a small favour before you make a bigger request. You could perhaps ask for a verbal commitment from someone before making a request for official action. Or you could take someone through a series of agreements to lead them towards a final decision. If you make a request of someone that involves them behaving in a way that is consistent with an earlier decision, they're much more likely to say yes. Have you ever seen a celebrity give an endorsement for a product and felt so well disposed towards them that you also start feeling compelled to buy the product they're endorsing? This relates to the simple principle of liking, which means that we tend to be more influenced by people we like, whether that's because they're attractive, friendly, or just seem similar to us in some way. You can take advantage of the principle of liking by establishing a rapport with someone before you make a request of them. You could do this by finding some common ground between you, giving them a genuine compliment, or using positive body language such as smiling, nodding, and making consistent eye contact. Just remember that people are more likely to say yes to a request from other people that they perceive as being likeable. Have you ever been out looking for a place to eat and chosen a busier restaurant over a quieter one on the basis that it must be good if lots of people are eating there? This is an example of the principle of social proof, which relates to our tendency to look to others for cues on how to behave. If lots of other people are doing something, then we assume that that's a good thing to do. You can use social proof to become more persuasive by showing that other people are already on board with your request. You might indicate how many people have said yes to a similar request previously. Or give some examples of where people have said yes to similar requests and then benefited from their decision. You're more likely to get a yes to a request if it appears to be the kind of thing that many people would do. Have you ever felt an instant connection with someone just because they support the same football team as you or come from the same hometown? This is an example of the principle of unity, which relates to our tendency to be more inclined to say yes to requests made by people who we feel connected with, perhaps because they share our identity, our values, or our experiences. You can boost your persuasiveness using this principle by framing any request around shared identity. So for example, you could draw attention to common interests and backgrounds, or you could tie the request in some way to team mentality. So there you have it, 7 ways to boost your persuasiveness. Of course, it's important to always remember that there is a difference between becoming more persuasive and becoming outright exploitative. So please use the advice I've given in this video responsibly and ethically. Be good to each other. See you in the next video.